There we go. Now we're live, Darren. How
All
about
right.
that? Real quick, the magic of technology.
Love it.
So we were just getting caught up in the backstage. Said you're pretty tired. Is that because you guys are moving so darn fast these days, or
Well, I
what?
mean, there's that. I have a 1-year-old. He made
Oh, okay.
one a couple of weeks ago, and so he's great, man. Best kid ever. Couldn't ask for a better one. But man, he's got this last week, man. We got to get tubes in his ears, so it's just like how that goes.
I
But anyway,
do.
but no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll think it could be way worse.
Yeah. So where
Ter-
where are you officially dialing in from? Where were you located?
I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, from New Orleans originally, and that's, I mean, really kind of how we got our start. I met my business partner Brett going to school in New Orleans in the 7th grade, and we always
Oh,
knew we wanted to do something big with tech. So we came up with this Immense Networks was going to be our company name, right? And then from that derived, immy.bot, the immense robot, which is like the little moniker we gave our automation that we do for our customers, and then we just flipped it around and started selling it to other MSPs.
all right. Well, we're gonna pack a lot here because that's pretty fascinating. Yeah, because you guys met in the 7th grade,
Lots
and
of lots of Counter Strike, like
yeah.
lots of Team Fortress Classic. He had DSL, I still had dial up. Used to bring my CRT 17-inch compact monitor to his house. He lived 45 minutes away.
Wow.
Man, yeah. My mom loved hauling that back and forth in the back of her 1998 Grand Prix.
Oh my God, I bet. So that's they always say that's risky business, right? Going in, I guess years later, but going into business with friends. It's I don't know,
Hey,
any challenges early on?
we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
That's like the key to any relationship is just a healthy level of respect. And Brett was the first person I had met that had the technical chops that I had, and it became this like game of one-upsmanship. And I think part of what makes it work is a lot of business deals are made like, oh, I'm the money guy, and then you'll be the the idea or the worker guy, right? And then like the sort of animosity comes because like it's hard to measure the relative value of different people's contributions,
Mm-hmm.
but because we're both tech guys, like 100%. So
Yeah.
for us, it's all about the tech. And when we started getting into like, we started with HTG peer groups and things like that, and we start realizing that these business owners don't really understand the tech they're installing sometimes, and like they're having to trust other people. We're like, oh, what? That's a thing?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was mind blowing to me. And anyway, but running a business is a totally different skill set, as I've learned, and really that was a huge transformation for us, because when you're purely in the weeds, technically speaking,
Mhm.
sometimes it's really easy to just not make a whole lot of money. And we've been fortunate to get people like Tara, who was joining us a moment ago, on to help like really shore up that side of the business and learn from other business owners in the industry. And really, we were in our own little bubble for the first, I don't know, since we started it really officially full time in 2008 until
Mhm.
about 2015, when I joined the HTG peer groups and we started meeting other people. And it was like, oh my God, everybody has these problems. Not everyone has this figured out. Like,
Right.
oh my, you know what I'm saying? And so then you don't feel alone
Yeah.
anymore. And then we start going to conferences, and we start, the big one for me was Automation Nation 2016, because that's when a bunch of the guys who are on the Lab Tech Geek forum kind of got together. They formed that MSP Geek Slack channel, the
Mhm.
community, and then it just sort of exploded, right?
Yeah.
And I was just on there doling out scripts left and right, and I realized that I I was a lot further ahead than a lot of people, right? Just because Brett and I mean, we studied computer science and computer engineering at LSU, so we're a little bit different than your traditional IT guy. We know how to program, and getting our start after Katrina, doing these big computer rollouts for these schools around New Orleans, really put us to the test. And then we just took all that automation and kept rolling it forward, and always thinking that we're behind, or everybody else has this figured out, and we can't even script a software deployment or a new computer. We can't even set up new computers right. Like this is crazy town. And then you discover that no one's got it figured out and we're all trying to do the same stuff. And then that was when like the opportunity light bulb went off, in 2016 after going to Automation Nation, realizing that like, no one has this figured out and I kind of do.
Yeah.
So, then I said, we're going to turn this thing around and we're going to make it into a product.
Again, a lot to unpack there. So take me back, I guess, to LSU. So it was Brett in engineering as well. And I know, back in the day, or I guess at LSU, you had an automotive kind of, I guess,
Oh yeah.
Or
I was heavily, yeah, man. I'm a car guy, and
good.
I finally got my Tesla. By the way, I got the Model Y Performance. Even got the immy.bot license plate. So Brett's like he's got the immense license plate. I've got the immy.bot license plate. Yeah, no, I was I was the only electrical engineer on the Formula SAE project. And it was, so I did all the wiring, I did all the tuning, I did all that, so I got really into that. And the joke, was always like, Brett's software and I'm hardware, right? But then like it sort of flipped at some point because Brett really started liking doing the management of like the data center equipment. Like he got really into that. And then I just went really down the rabbit hole of like, I'm going to get really good at writing software, And I mean, we're both really good, but we both have our strong suits. Right. And so it's just been amazing, man.
So how much of a catalyst was Katrina to you guys getting started?
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, I mean, I imagine that was idiots. Chaos.
We go in there. Okay. So we get a phone call from Brett's mom and she's like, hey, honey, we've got remember that school down Chalmette, Miss Pam? Yeah, they got a whole bunch of laptops that you and Darren want to set up. We didn't know that they had 500 laptops floor to ceiling in this teacher's lounge. And, like any big box vendor, oh yeah, we're going to image them for you. Don't worry. They had them, they already bought them. And they didn't do anything. Right. So they've got this like, they got this IBM servers that were supposed to have ESX 3.5 on it, Windows Server 2003 R2, all that. And we had never set any of that up before. And we actually started working with the Archdiocese IT guys who were surprisingly competent. And once they saw that, like, we charged them like $25,000 for the whole project. We spent all summer there. I mean, all summer. And I mean, I was even helping the teachers. I was automating the process of creating their grade books in Grade Quick for them. Like it was bananas, the level of detail we went. But, when they went day one, all the teachers opened their laptops and everything worked. And the students had their laptops and cards and everything worked. The web filtering was in place. And man, it was like, okay. And so then the word got back to the Archdiocese. And those are the guys who are kind of making the decisions. And they were like, okay, you're the only vendor that didn't screw us. Go do these other 5 schools, So then that kind of like really propelled it forward, in terms of, okay, now we got the confidence that we actually are doing something better than other companies. So we're like, okay, let's push hard on this. And, it gave us that little bit of a nest egg for us to get our first office, hire people, things of that nature.
Got it. So from, I guess, 2008, 2009, you're kind of in the trenches, kind of building it out, got stuff with first office, probably hiring the first couple employees, trying to figure out sales and marketing. It says around 2015 is when you got involved with HTG. Was there like a moment? Was it just you're talking to some other MSPs and we're going down this path, or were you at that that moment where it's like it's so damn lonely being a business owner and what the hell am I doing? And so what was the catalyst?
The catalyst was one of my customers, great customer. He had joined a peer group. He does like HVAC work, and he started coming back to me with ideas about wanting to leverage technology better. He was always pretty tech forward, and he was like, well, I got a guy that says this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, if you want to do those things, let's do it, right? And so then I was like, man, he's got a lot of great ideas coming out of this peer group he's got. Let me go see. And so I just like Google around. Okay, IT peer group, HTG shows up. Okay, go out to the farm, do that whole thing, and then officially join. And then Brett joined me a couple of quarters in, and and for me, like I remember like there was a light bulb moment, and I think it was when Paul Dipple was in the room, and I was arguing with him about whether or not recurring block hours is the same thing as managed services. And the light bulb for me, because I was like, it's all recurring revenue. Why do you care? And he just goes, managed services is charging by anything but the hour. I'm like, why? And then he explained the concept of like being in alignment with your customers. If you're billing them hours, you make more money during emergencies. That was a big light bulb for me. And then like the biggest light bulb that really propelled immy.bot forward was the whole stack homogenation thing. You know, me and Brett being tech guys, we love to go and grab the fanciest new, whatever, the Cisco, Palo Alto, you name it. He loves network. He'll go and buy the fanciest firewall and then get aggravated that none of the guys know how to troubleshoot it.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, sure, we could figure that out.
Yeah.
But like, the other guys like me are going to start their own IT companies, right? So we need to make this easy. And so we started saying, you know what, let's dial this back. Maybe let's get a firewall that isn't exclusively configured over command line. Like maybe just to at least have a, so give our guys a fighting chance without them having to, eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff like we do, right? And so we did that, and we spent a lot of time just designing what our stack was going to be. And then I said, okay, I'm going to script the deployment of all of this stuff to all of our customers. We had a bunch of customers we approached, said, look, we're going to be raising your bill. We're going to meter you like this now. So it's going to be double or triple what you're already paying. But look at all this great stuff that you get. You're going to get Office 365. So you're not going to have, these random OEM copies of Office. That's a different version across all your computers. We're going to include this Foxit Phantom PDF editor. So we don't have to deal with Adobe licensing anymore. You're going to get Mimecast plugin for Outlook. So you can report your spam and it'll automatically notify you. And we're going to replace your firewall with this FortiGate. So everybody's going to get this FortiClient thing on all their computers. But man, I started to try to install all this stuff using Automate, and dude, it was so hard. I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, you write the script for one of them, and then you write the script for the second one, and you're like, well, okay, well, 90% of the script is the same. And you got to write the script for the third one. Okay, well, hold on, this part's different from those other two. But eventually you find all like the commonalities, and you figure out what the parts are you can abstract. Of course, me being like a programmer, I'm like, well, hold on, let me just function this side. Before you knew it, I had like 80 scripts that are all like calling each other in like these crazy recursive fashions to handle dependencies and all this nonsense. And it was impossible to debug just because of how slow the engine is, right? Not to mention you're writing in this like really archaic language. It's not even a real language, right? And I'm just like, I can't do this. And so I said, we're gonna have to turn this thing to its own standalone deal, right? And so we did. And so we made that decision in 2018, and then we launched immy.bot officially in August of 2020. So we spent about 2.5 years getting it ready, getting to the point where we could deploy it. We've got, orchestration, tying it into like a billing system. So you can't there's no possible way I was going to launch without a billing system, right? We saw like billing on the MSP side is so hard. I mean, any business owner knows that. And so for me, I was like, it has to be easy. Right. And so we got all that set up, and that's actually kind of like my next foray with immy.bot. Thinking big picture is to really make it easy for admins to do the billing and be accountable, not only for like when you're setting up and provisioning new stuff, but also when you're tearing that stuff down. Because what always gets left is, oh, well, we forgot to deprovision the license from Sentinel-1, or we forgot to remove my, the license from Automate or whatever, and you're still clogging up the license, or you're still getting billed for it. And so we're kind of wrapping our hands around that whole like onboarding and offboarding process, so that way all of your I's are dotted, T's are crossed, things like that. And because we've got the linkages out into the APIs for all these systems, we can do it, and since we already tie back to your billing for what I call top down, like tie what you're installing based on what people are paying you for, I can now turn that around and say, okay, yes, they have an agreement for this. We're just going to update those quantities and make sure that this is right. Provide details if you want of what's changed from month to month. And that's the big picture for late this year, early next year.
Yeah, we'll get into the kind of the kind of how you reversed or backed into it, but actually envisioning you in 2008 in maybe like a school gym auditorium with 500 laptops sitting there, and you're looking up and thinking, damn, I wish there was immy.bot, or something like that.
Oh my God, it was so hard. I mean, that was before group policy preference existed. So I mean, like, if you didn't bake it into the image, trying to get something to deploy, especially the laptops that would having to like break out multiple 48 port switches with Ethernet cables everywhere. I mean, it was really hard.
Yeah.
And that was really before PowerShell even. So, we're on XP at the time. So you're dealing with like VB scripts. It's gross.
Wow. Yeah. So damn, that must have been a hellish summer. And then kind of that second inflection point, as you're mentioning, right, is post, getting into the peer group, kind of broadening how you're thinking about the business, how you're solving problems, and then, kind of dreamt up this concept of immy.bot. And so, as you launched in it, I imagine like most of the techs that you talk to are probably always shaking their head like, yes, like, I have the same exact problem. It's like, it's like they're living that same nightmare. But as you launched, I mean, when did you, I guess, realize that you had something that was so you had the benefit of being able to maybe incubate it right in the
Yeah.
MSP, and that's a common thing with a lot of the vendors that we work with or talk with. But when did you realize that you had something here? Because it's pretty impressive the way you guys have developed over the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, okay, I have this like, I don't know if it's unwarranted or warranted sense of self-confidence about this stuff where I'm just like, no, this is going to work. People are going to buy it. Like,
Mhm.
just, there's no question. Like, why would anyone even think that this wouldn't be successful? But, of course, there's, you're so, that's balanced out. That's the one difference between like me and Brett. But Brett believed in it strongly too, because he fully understood the technical problems that there were. Right. And, but, yeah, we started, we got a few customers on that were just like beta testers. They start using it, and it's hard sometimes because, man, it was buggy. I had gone to a couple of my HTG group friends and tried to onboard him before it was like fully like abstracted and out enough that it could really play well on other people's data. And man, they're like, Darren, this is clunky. Like, it's taking too long. Like, this needs to be. I'm like, oh my god, I
Yeah.
know. So it was hard, but I never like, if there's one thing about me, I'm persistent, right? So like,
Mhm.
okay, I burn these beta testers. I'm not going to sell to my HGG group, but the win for me is that almost all of those guys in my group now use immy.bot, but not because they told their guys to do it, because their guys found it on their own.
Ah, right on, right on.
So that's like the real win, right?
Yeah.
But, and I don't know, I just like, I always knew it was going to work. So I just knew it was necessary. Like, once I started going to these conferences and getting involved with the community and realizing that nobody has this figured out, I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's funny. There's obviously, Reddit, that's where I guess a lot of people are dumping scripts and I guess maybe some of the forums, maybe the MSP Geek forums and stuff like that. But there really hasn't been until you guys came along, there hasn't been like this kind of centralized, automation platform to be able to accomplish this. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe some at the enterprise level, but even at that, I mean, they're so wildly complex and distributed. They don't even know if they solve those problems. And so, you mentioned you have this kind of, this persistence about you, and it's not just, it's going to work. Well, yeah, it's going to work. It's not a will to work. It's just going to work. As you launched and you're starting to get feedback from, the peer group members, and then got into, I guess scaling sales and marketing, where do you see this? Maybe let's talk about like maybe how many MSPs are working with you guys now?
We just broke 500. I think we're at 510 right now.
Wow. All right. Yeah. So that's moving pretty quick,
Yeah.
especially, launching in 2020, and then probably working out some of the bugs, and really maybe a formal launch in 2021. And then, the scale to 500 that quick is pretty damn good. Do you guys have an eye on a target by the end of the year, or do you guys have a goal that you guys are shooting for?
I'm trying to sustain 5% month over month growth, which we've exceeded every month so far this year. Last year we sustained 12% month over month. Yes, last year was insane. Then we raised our
Yeah.
prices, so
Yeah.
that we fixed the glitch.
Right.
But you know what I
It's
mean?
good to do it early, right? It's good to do it
Right?
early. Get
Yeah.
out of the
Also,
way.
yeah. Some people, yeah. Well, I know some people want early enough or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So goal for this year, I mean, it's really hard to say. I would love to see the growth ramp up, but honestly, my biggest thing isn't really sales. Like, sure, I could sell, but because I have that confidence about me that I just know this thing is going to work. It's more like a, hey guys, let's batten down the hatches and make sure we're ready for it, because it will happen. And they
Mhm.
see it, right? Luckily, it's been linear, and we haven't hit that hockey stick quite yet. And but even with that, as we add more features, that means we have to add more support for it, better documentation, just finding all these edge cases. And those are the sorts of things, as we hire people to help maintain, because that's really the key difference between immy.bot and a lot of the other products, is that we maintain this massive global repository of software, right? And so, if there's a problem, the script doesn't work in this scenario, okay, well, that's on us to fix, because that's the value prop. You don't have to have a scripting guide necessarily. And so now I'm going out and I'm hiring PowerShell guys and back end guys and front end guys to help polish it and really make it feel like something that a tech guy didn't build. I think the UI is leaps and bounds ahead of most UIs, but I want it to feel like a Facebook, Amazon, Google sort of interface. I want it to be so insanely good that nothing else even compares, right?
Yeah, well, you can tell that it was designed and built by techs, because it has definitely tech friendly vibe to it. So so you've got what 10, 12 primary integrations listed up on the site. How do you guys go about determining what's next, what platform to integrate into next?
It's a juggle, because some platforms are easier to integrate with than others, and but some of the harder ones are in higher demand. So, like, case in point, in Central, we had a lot of people using in Central. Their API is a nightmare, and they know it. And they're finally getting around to releasing a proper REST API. We'll see. But man, that one was really hard, but we had so many people beating the door down for it. We had to do it. And then there were other ones that were really easy. Like the Cloud Radio guys are great. Like, they made a special API just for us to be able to get their internal installer ID. It was awesome. Like, no issue there. So, it's a mix between customer demand and how difficult it's going to be. But luckily, so one of the things we did, since we have a lot of people ask for a lot of different integrations, we just released this thing we call dynamic integrations, which essentially allows you to make an integration in PowerShell instead of having to have access to a source code. Previously, we would have to make all the integrations ourselves, and it was really labor intensive. Yeah. Now, what used to be boilerplate, at least 20 files of C# in weeks and weeks of development time, is now a single PowerShell script that's about 50 lines that takes about an hour and a half to make. It's insane. We put a lot of thought into how we're going to do this, and I was like, let's do it exactly like this. We're going to abstract out all the complexities. Now that we had a solid 5 what we call core integrations, and then I was like, look at all this repeated code. This could be abstracted out. The backend could do the heavy lifting here. These are the little bits that this thing needs to implement, and we did that. And so I got on the phone with the Acronis guys the other day, and I think we were there for an hour and had the integration built out. I don't think I've released that one yet, but it was really easy. I was so happy.
Yeah. I think that's something to lean into, right? The simplicity, and the speed, because I think there's others obviously in and around the space trying to solve these problems, but I haven't seen anybody that's created a platform like you guys have, and and really truly having that ability to skip to the front of the line like that. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, I like the saying, I think it was an Abraham Lincoln saying, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 5 sharpening my axe. Yeah. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, look, that's I think a pretty important, principle to develop by, right? So I think there's that minimum viable product path, right? Which most companies go down, and then you're spending, a ton of time trying to, on the back end, clean things up and then really build to what the customer wants. And that works, and that works, but something that is as so complex as what you're dealing with, right? On the back end, you almost have to take that approach where, when you get this thing out to market, it's got to work, right? Because, that failure to adopt, I would assume, would be, pretty high. The first, challenge, or the first 4 or 5 challenges somebody runs into, they're like, it's taking more out of my day just to kind of mess around with this than it's worth. And so you have to kind of develop with that mentality.
Right. And there's also luckily for us, we've sort of identified the foot in the door with the new computer setups, because every MSP has this problem. All right. And so we'll get our foot in the door. We start collecting money. Okay, cool. That's solving a problem and providing enough value for them to justify keeping the product. We have very low churn, right? Sure. So people will get ingrained in that. And of course, they'll start adding, well, we want this, we want that. And one of the things I'm very opinionated about, how things should work. So one of the things that people ask me all the time, well, Darren, when is immy.bot gonna have better reporting? And I'll say, okay, here's my whole thing about that. What are you doing with the reports? Okay, what are you doing with them? Do you really want us to be another report generator? No, and I don't want to build that either because that already exists. Okay, but the reason you want those reports most likely is because you're trying to go and get the counts for your admin person, update the invoices every month. How about we just skip the report generation part and then skip the inevitable manual labor that creates, and let me just go and adjust those for you. Right? It's kind of like Steve Jobs with the whole like, you'll know what I want when I give it to you, or was that Henry Ford? I don't remember, but or
Yeah.
like, if somebody would have asked me what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? Like,
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at. I'm like, hey, you think you want that? I know where you're going with it. You
Right.
just give me like 3 more months, and then you'll forget that you ever needed that or thought you wanted it.
Look, that's also the value of being in their shoes, being in the trenches as long as you have, right? Is that you can predict, you can anticipate what the challenges are. And to your point, right? I mean, it's you can see, you can map that whole process that they're thinking in their head, right? Why they need reporting, and then how they're gonna have to go in and basically do this manual audit, and skip ahead, right? And so yeah, it's might cause some short-term, friction, not even friction, but then the long-term benefits that you get out of that is pretty significant.
Exactly.
So you guys have tackled, you're tackling these mammoth, challenges. You're making, automation, you're doing the front end, and making it easier on the, having a pretty significant impact on the front end, and then obviously having an impact on the back end with billing. So, where does this end up? Where do you guys end up going over the next, 24 months, 36 months?
Whew, man. I've got a lot of things that I really want to do. Everything really just revolves around making the technicians' lives easier and just in empowering end users. So, big initiative for me is let's start giving people interfaces to go and solve problems themselves, and that's going to start with pods inside of the ticket, right? Where we're able to look. We already track who logs into what computer. We can look up the computer based on email address, things like that. We know what software is on the machine already because we either installed it ourselves or we inventoried it, right? And so it's going to be, all right, ticket comes in, technician opens it up. Oh, okay, immy.bot sees, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Here's the computers. Here's the things we found in the event log. Here's some potential auto remediation tasks you could do. Things like that, all very context specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to morph into a self-service catalog that end users can log into. And so you'll have software that is, maybe available to them from their company, but we don't push it because perhaps there's a small pool of licenses for it, things like that. That's one of the big initiatives. Where we released remote control earlier this year. We want to start adding more capabilities to that. And really, another interesting thing I want to do with that is start being able to actually push software that requires interactivity. Because, well, if you think about it, remote control is just emulating mouse and keyboard inputs based on my mouse and keyboard inputs on a different computer, right? So why not leverage that as part of the automation process, right? So let's auto log on the machine. Let's launch the software that requires that interactivity. So now we're no longer limited to things that are, that are available to silently install. It's like, oh no, we could like literally automate anything.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
That's really what I want to do. And I would love to start branching out. I want ultimately to turn immy into an MDM to compete with Intune. Anybody who spent any time with Intune, I get this a lot. Like, well, how is immy.bot better than Intune? Like, have you used Intune? And then I get the guys that have actually tried to do Intune, and they're like, yeah, dude, we did like 2 Intune projects for customers, and oh my god,
we get it. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, if you haven't tried it, either try it yourself or go talk to somebody who has, right? Because you're not going to believe me because I've got an agenda.
Yeah. No, yeah, man. So just on that automation side, I mean, I don't know, my kind of blew my mind for a minute because there's so many different directions that you can go. You literally, like, you do have a kind of a springboard to go in so many different directions. So imagine that's a challenge, kind of, just like, picking who to integrate, within, or who to integrate into. Probably a challenge to figure out what is next, because you can go into so many different directions.
Oh man, we get pulled in all kinds of crazy directions. One of the things people ask for a lot is they want us to integrate with some of these like third-party vulnerability scanners, so we could just like auto remediate things that finds, oh, here's the new 7-zip vulnerability, and then just fire it out to immy, and then immy just goes, stuff like that. That's one thing that I get a lot. The biggest thing for me really that I want to do is I want to start taking and we've gotten the hard part of this done, honestly. I want to start creating the rules for you, right? So if you get into immy.bot, the way I tell people to grow into it is just use it for those new computer setups, and then use every computer as a opportunity to get more refined with your rules, right? So you start, breadth first, right? What is the stuff you put on every single computer? And then you kind of work your way down to the specific customer stuff, and then the specific groups within that customer, and then down to the individuals themselves. And that's great. But man, that could take time. And you're not going to get like everything done all at once, so you'll be constantly growing into and tweaking the product. But I think all the time, like, we've got this massive amount of data back here, and we started linking up all the software that we find on the machines to their representation inside of our global database. So now you can ingest all the software. You could just, we'd use whatever your RMM agent is, we'll use that, or you push our agent out. We'll grab all that software, we map it, and then the idea would be, let's turn this into like a Netflix style movie recommender. So next time you go to set up a new computer or you get a new customer, it just pops up and says, hey, this has a 98% Immy Tomatoes score. You should push this out to that customer because based on what we found on their network, everyone there probably needs this Autodesk software, right? Like things like that. Or we found that all the users in the accounting group have QuickBooks installed with this serial number and product code. Would you like to go ahead and apply this recommended deployment that will install that version of QuickBooks to that specific group of individuals? That's really where we're going to go.
Yeah, and then I imagine you could probably even create regulated frameworks. You can create even kind of a higher level for law firms, accounting firms, kind of those different areas. And so and helping those ones that specialize. I mean, you're taking a lot of friction out of the edges when it comes to deployments. Yeah,
because your customers think you're going to do that. All I'm trying to do is meet the expectations of the customers I had on the MSP side. They thought that we could just snap our fingers and push out that latest version of NetDocs to them on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, right? And it's like, bro, they don't even publish the silent flags for this. This could take days. And they're like, well, the consultant leaves in 10 minutes, so could y'all just knock it out?
Right.
Like, bro, you've got 50 computers and half of my guys already left. Like, I don't, So, and that's the expectation. So, I was like, I'm going to make this a reality. So I want the reality to be that when your customer goes, I don't know what license we use for Olympus Dictate. You're the IT guy. Shouldn't you know that? Yeah, you know what? You're right. We should know that. I want to make that a thing. We should know that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, again, you're coming at it from, the point of view of the technician. You've kind of been in the seat, you've got that technical background, and I always look at the common themes when I do these podcasts, and whether it's the founder or executives or whatever, but there's either a technical founder, there's a business founder, some kind of been more kind of that marketing space, some have a really healthy blend, but I think the most successful ones are the ones that have been in the shoes of the customer, right? And I think it's actually a significant strength that you're projecting, or you're being prescriptive about what they should do, and the ability to anticipate the next question from the technician, because you've been in those shoes. I think it allows you to build even more stellar product. And so I imagine, again, any technician listening to this is probably shaking their head like, this is the same damn problem I face every single day in and day out, every deployment. And so I imagine you guys will have a more than material, if not significant, impact on automation. So
that's what we're trying to do, man.
Yeah, seems like you're doing it well. So we had one little comment here from this is Marlo. He said, Intune, oh my God, yes.
He knows. He knows.
Definitely striking a chord with the audience here. But so what's the best way to get a hold of immy.bot, get a hold of you? Kind of play around?
Here's the way I like to do it. Just get on the website, free trial. We don't ask for a credit card, nothing. Just go get an instance going, log in, kick the tires. Just you inevitably, because our getting started wizard is not the best, you're gonna be like, what the hell am I doing? This sucks. But you'll at least have good questions. Some people are like, oh, we want to see a demo of the product first. I'm like, why don't you try it? Okay. I mean, me and Bert are the kind of guys who are like, I don't want to talk to anyone until I've at least clicked around and fumbled through it. If I don't understand it, then I'll talk to you. Some people do figure it out right off the bat. Most people are like, we're stuck. Like, we don't know what is this. Okay, cool. Now it's time to book the call. And then when you see immy.bot actually set up a new computer, like no, literally I tell people, have a new computer in a box and we will unbox it together on the call. And we will set this up for the customer that it is supposed to be delivered for by the end of this 1 hour phone call. And it will be perfect. And they're like, hold on, do we have a computer on the shelf? And like they do it. And when the session starts and they see it go, they're like, oh, okay, wait. Well, they also need, and I'm like, boom, make a deployment for it. But that software, this customer, all customers. Oh, that should only be installed. Sentinel-1 should only be for customers that have Sentinel-1 in the building. Okay, let's go ahead and tie in your PSA now. Okay, boom. Sentinel-1 should be installed on all customers that pay you for Sentinel-1. Boom, next. All right, cool. And so after like the third time of like making the rules like that, they're like, oh, okay, well, let me try. And then they do it. And then now they just keep rerunning the session, and every time it runs, it's like, oh, okay, now there's this that needs to be, now there's that needs to be, oh, well, let's remove this bloatware too. And then before you know it, it's just like perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. So do that, right? Like that's the best way to get into it. And then the greatest part about it is when you're done, all you just put your credit card number and you can continue to use it because you've already customized it to your environment.
There you go. Wow. That makes customizing your own trial and getting it through it. And then, it's brilliant. Well, great. Well, look, man, appreciate you hopping on. Like I said, you guys are obviously more than on to something. You know that. I think every technician knows that. And definitely go out, check you guys out. And no credit card necessary, but by the end, I'm sure you're going to want to use it for all of your customers. So pretty cool stuff, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. This has been awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, until next time.
Next time. Later.